Good evening, good peoples. This is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. We are at Roundhill for its 15 single stock funds. These are weekly payers, good yield, good NAV increase most of the time. I added one new field. So I'm going to go through individually each of the 15, tell you what they paid, such as Nvidia 30 cents, 0.306273 versus 38.43, 45, $1.08. You can see them. Read them and weep. Here's a 30-cent payer back on May 30th. All right. And then this is current price. So did the price go up or did the price go down? A new field that I added because I want you to get a feel for trending. Which stocks are moving up, which stocks are moving down. I just arbitrarily chose to sum up the last six. So week before it went down $3.23, up $1.03, up $1.25, down 2.96, down 1.11, up 4.44. So if you add these together, you're still down $4. So from a NAV standpoint, you're not increasing. Okay. And you can sort of see you were paid $1.0895. This is up where it's near its all-time highs. All right. So pretty self-explanatory. And then down at the bottom, this is since the fund started. Remember, these first five are all like 228. Then they're somewhere in June, and then they're like late July for the other ones. And on the summary, that'll tell us. For instance, you have a bunch of 205 calendar days, a bunch at 86 calendar days, and then the remaining five at 50 calendar days. So this is another important thing. How has Nvidia, NVDW, the underlying Nvidia, how's it done since its inception? Really pretty well. Nvidia has been a very strong stock. So for it's risen 12.74, it's dropped 1.94. Sorry, when I say risen. It is paid out $12.74, and the NAV price since this 228 has dropped 194. So you're still $10, almost $11 to the positive, right? 10, 80 to the positive. Excellent. All right. So Tesla, this is important because Tesla is trending up, not radically. We had two positive months, a buck 33, call it a buck, down 266, but right back up 255, down 218, but right back up 292. So we net plus 2.9. So again, I've said that of the beaten down stocks, I liked Tesla. Now, you've had some other just 1 week beaten down came roaring back. And I'll talk to you on my summary sheet about the percentages. But Tesla, this fund, TSLW, is like the third highest percent gainer this last week. All right. So what did it pay? 42 cents, a 64.44 yield, and the fund was up. Now this one, the fund was also up, but a much lower yield, and it's been trending negative over the last 6 weeks. All right. So how did it do over here? Well, Tesla's struggled, guys. You'll see it in the total summary, but it's getting better. This was really lopsided. So again, when you're trending positive over the last 6 weeks, you're trying to overcome that, right? So again, this is if you were fresh new dollars in, you've done pretty well over the last 4, 5, 6 payments, if that's when you bought in. Apple, Apple, Apple. All right, Apple is $2.58 of a NAV increase over the last 6 weeks of payment. You can see it, right? You got doubles here, green, 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 green. When it goes down, right? That's close to what these two went up. But these two went up 450, only went down. So altogether up 258. 23 cents, guys. 23.29. 32 yield. Again, not a big payer in these, but nobody pays a lot on Apple, to be honest. Um, $7 and $13. That is not a good situation. However, I do like this, right? You always have to be looking at data in a lot of different ways. Now, look at this. This is ugly, right? And yet, for the week, you're up 214. You got a whopping 114.99, call it 115. All right. So, an excellent payout. The only better payout, well, I see three. So you had 91 cents. I see $1.07 when it was ripping, $1.03.94. Otherwise, that's like your fourth best payment, uh, being up to 14. But this is pretty ugly. But we knew about this, right? This is where the ugliness happened. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I only made this 5 days, then you would only be down one something. But this happens to coincide. I didn't, I just picked 6 weeks and then made everybody 6 weeks. So it caught this 1233 after having 2 months of being down seven. This is when it was ripping up nine, up 14, down four, up five, up three, right? And that's the nature of the beast. That's why I complain at a Coney and looking at yield max, because they're not capturing as much of the upside with this leverage, okay, by the utilization of swaps. Roundhill on their weekly is capturing the leverage and then paying you, and you see it in your payment. And Coney, Misty, and these other ones, you wait and wait and wait for the month, and you don't know where you are. You don't know what they're going to pay. I don't care if you do the forensic accounting like I've done on the daily basis. That was my frustration with Pulte and ultimately with Coney, so I sold those. So I own PLTW over here. I own a COYY. I'm playing around with Granite. Again, they pay excellent, but they nav erode more. All right. So that's what we got on that one. Now, how does that look overall? Because of that bigger uptime, you're still, if you got in early, you're still ahead of the game by about $8, a little over $8. But, all depends on where you were. If you FOMO'd in here because you saw all this, then you're getting killed now. I mean, look at that, $13 in these 6 weeks. If you go 7 and 8, that becomes like 21. So timing is everything. That's why I said if you were a trader, you could trade the income funds to some degree, especially when they're weekly, so that you can still capture. When they're monthly, you got to be careful. You get close to that payout, you don't want to miss the payout. But then again, you know, you get that deducted. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. All right, so here's Palantir down 306, right? And this is what hurts them. They had a 789, but they had a minus 10. Again, these high flying, the Hui's, right? Hood, Palantir, Nvidia, when they fly, they really fly. So they're going to pull back if the market hiccups a little bit. I've said that about Palantir as much as I love it, right? I mean, it's market driven now. So you'll see down here, Hood came flying back, but this at least went up more than it went down here, but it needs to work this off. All right, what did it pay? 49.7, a 57% yield. I'm okay with that. Nothing super big out of that, right? It paid 66 last week, 62. These are the killer. 151, 105. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So still looking really good. Again, if you got in early. That's why I talk about the underlying. When you've got a fantastic underlying and you're in it when it's relatively cheap back then, I mean, the markets were up in 228. Not like the markets were down. It just was earlier in Palantir. There was a big NASDAQ movement still. So you're 16 ahead. You sure in the heck aren't 16 ahead if you FOMO'd in here. You bought about right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at least. Yeah, so that includes the 7, but has the 10 down and the 2. All right, guys. So, but overall, that's pretty good. All right, how we doing here? How we doing? All right, Amazon down 384. I mean, this looked okay. It's not that big up moves, but this was these are outsized. They haven't had any $3 gain, but they've had two $3 losses. So Amazon's having a hard time here. They had $2. They paid 36 cents, almost 40% on the yield. This is decent, $5.07 minus 106. So sometimes you can have a down here and still have an excellent payout. All right, Berkshire Hathaway, I was saying to you guys, it was getting better, but now that we're kind of back up on the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, this is not so defensive because that's what BRKW really is. It's a play on Berkshire B, and it's a defensive, or your Procter and Gambles. They make soap. You still got to bathe, you know, when we're in a recession. You're still going to watch some TV when we're in a recession. Hopefully, you're still brushing your teeth, right? So those household goods, all of that kind of stuff. Your high ticket restaurants, your travel, your holidays, your vacations, you're going to cut some of that back when you're feeling the pinch. Maybe you got laid off, or it's just recessionary, right? Where you were working two jobs to make it, and now your second job went away. So there's all kinds of pressures out there. Mortgage rates clearly are hurting people that aren't in a house forever with a fixed rate, either paid for or they've got a fixed rate when interest rates were much lower. I really feel for the younger generation being priced out of homes for the first time in many years in the US. It's sad. All right. Here's Hood, guys. Oh, let me give you the summary. Throw 356, 247 for BRKW. See, when it comes back strong. I mean, look at this at a 978 and a 925. But this more than whittled. That's 2.2 ahead because we're able to get 6 weeks. We just caught these two at 14. But look at this. This is 12, guys. You got 12, four straight losses pulling $12 out. But look at this payment, buck 58. They've had a buck 59 and 245, the only two payments that are more. They've got a ton of just high payments. I mean, as much as I said to you, I don't see Hood being a 10-year darling. I don't see it the way I see Nvidia as an AI darling. Right now, it's a retail broker darling. But could that evaporate in 2 or 3 years? Yeah. Could somebody just buy them out? Yeah. So, I don't see the intellectual property to where it's anything. It's like having a really hot restaurant. You got a trend. You're the trendiest restaurant in town in Houston and Dallas, and Denver, Chicago, and you're making bank. Well, 3 years, 2 years later, somebody else has got a theme or it's the hot place in town. Now, I'm not saying that brokers flip around the way restaurants do, but in restaurant, it's just style, it's feel. Maybe celebrities pop in. Maybe a celebrity owns it, so it's trending, right? In this case, you come out, you make it friendly to the Gen Xers, you make it, mobile dominated, you take away commissions, you do more things with crypto. But listen, people can follow suit. Other big companies aren't going to get excluded from the market. They just happen. Hood has an aggressive forward thinking CEO, and that's positive, right? All right, so What did they do overall? Look at this. That when you get this, you know you're winning. Remember, I was telling you, Palantir was kicking butt with like 15 over here and barely losing. When you can get two, you know you're doing good. But I'll say, guys, while this is a good payment, do I trust the momentum here? The market turns down, Hood's going to go down pretty aggressively. So you just got to feel if you feel like in a flat market, it can continue up some. In a pretty strong down market, your overvaluation stocks are the one. Plus, if you turn down in the markets, that means less revenue for a retail broker. All people are doing is liquidating and getting margin calls, right? So if anything, they're buying less and they're participating less. They're getting pushed out of the market. All right. Meta, Facebook. So, but this is awesome. $25. Really, $26. It's just awesome. MetW, Facebook, 5 and 3. What did they pay? 40 cents, call it 42.57 on the yield. How we doing over the 6 weeks? Minus 4.9. So by the way, to read it, I didn't tell you the yield. Almost 120% on Hood, guys. HOOW, the owl. 58 yielding 119%. Okay, Netflix. Remember I was saying to you guys, this one is confusing. So down 265 for the week, right? After 270 cent moves up a 19. And yet, by far, more than double, or double. Well, it's not double this one, but it's just about double this one, which is the second highest payment. Look at this. I've been saying to you guys, seems like as we're recessionary oriented right now, stagflation issue where inflation is still out there. Jobs are, not so great. Mortgage rates are really high. Car insurance is high. There's a lot of things that the average worker is struggling with. And I kept thinking in my mind that Netflix was going to start doing better. Well, they're paying better, but they didn't do it over here. So that's a conflux, right? Like, why? 135% yield. Whew. And look, this is showing what they've done over here. The last 6 weeks, they're still down zero point 0.7. It's not a lot. Call it flat. All right, Microsoft, not well at all, minus 6.67. I mean, I guess it depends on what you're looking at. They paid, look at the payment. Again, a week reflects more of what happens a week before. These things trend, right? They're collecting the money 2 weeks back to pay you for this, future payout. That's a great. I'm going to come back here, guys. So I did not tell you. 912, you can buy these on Friday and you will get paid next Tuesday. X date is on Monday, so you have to buy on Friday, guys, on all 15 of these funds. All right, let's get back to Microsoft. Not pretty here. Still more down than up, right? Down here. Nothing here other than 4 times a payment, almost 6 times this payment, more than 5 times this payment. Now, this is a big payment, but look at this. You talk about people, oh, they're just returning your money. Well, why are they returning in your money in such different allocation? That's just Yieldmax haters hating on the fund. It's just, to me, a better fund company, especially in these single stocks. They don't have an ulti. They don't have some of the unique stuff. But you know what? On their 15 funds, every time I've analyzed them, they win like 13 head to head with Yieldmax. They're winning like 13 out of the 15 funds in total return. And I can adjust. It's like I'm sailing and I get updates every 4 days so I can adjust, my path to get there the quickest versus, oh, I wait a month and then I find out I've been sailing way out too far south. I need to start heading much more north. So you can't correct yourself as often. Now I know Max has weekly, and if I find a weekly I like, that's great. I don't find too many I like in their weekly. But if I did, I really, really like the single stocks being weekly. I would have said to you before, I don't care that I get paid once a week, but I really like it now that I've experienced it. All right, MSTW, all right, MicroStrategy. Ugly, guys, look at this. Is there anything like a green over here? No, doesn't appear to be. Now, the payment is middle of the stream. But look at these first three payments. At least they weren't doing as bad. 85, 78, $1.39. Now they're 40, 45, 35, up to a higher yield. But that's brutal. I call that. I plain and simple call that, guys. While everybody was telling you go retire on Misty, what was I telling you? Something is broken with MSTR. It's not necessarily broken with BTC. So own your YBTCs, your BITOs, your baggies, your biddies. I mean, all of the BTC income oriented funds and not your MicroStrategy underlying funds. All right, AMDW on AMD. Not good, guys. 6 weeks is ugly. 2, 3. That's brutal. And I liked this a while back. I said, I think, but I sold mine because at that time, this was just beginning. So I bought, AMDY at Yeomax, but I hated waiting a month. Avgo, as much as I say some negative things, this company is a dynamo. The products that they own, and there's a lot of them from software to hardware networking, software. These guys have a hell of a portfolio, known as Broadcom for a long time, and they got bought out by AVG, the big financial parent company, right? That could easily go buy a hood or anything like that. And these guys are flying. Look at this. 956. Are you kidding me? They're up 848 over the last 6 weeks. What was Hood? Oh, that was in the last group. Wasn't that level? These guys are a monster. And look at GUI. Oh, I mean, Google has just been kicking butt. 205, 557, a buck 80. They came back down to earth after getting the 85 payment, the 159, the 80, they're back to 45. But this is what you want to see. 501, 993 in total. So good on Google. It was kind of undervalued for quite a while. It's reverting to the mean, guys. Now, how long is that going to go? I don't know. What's the market going to do? That's your better answer. All right, summary, guys. You can see a lot here. I'm going to show you who wins. There's three groups, right? So it's not fair comparing a brand new one and saying, oh, they had 180%, but this guy only had 20%. It's a whole, you can't maintain 180 for 205 days typically. So looking at this group, Palantir, because of the underlying, right? PLTW still has one of the best software companies in the world in the underlying. Now, Tesla, the reason I did that 6 is Tesla's coming on, right? Tesla's waking up. Yeah, it's still negative, but it's not the worst anymore. Apple is. And if you look at over the last 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, Tesla's doing pretty well. Go look at this. This is percent. You don't care what the change is, $4, $6. What you care about, what is the weekly change percentage? So look at the monsters, guys. The monster is Broadcom, AVGO, the underlying AVGW at Roundhill. That's a monster. 1852 went from 51 to 61. This one went from 59 to 69. You go, Hood. And then you had third place being Tesla, 31 to 34. Good on you. So it doesn't show over here, but guys, you want to know, somebody will say to me, what's the best stock for the next 3 months? Not like I'm magic, I can always predict it, but I can tell you who's trending, who might have a shot to be in there, right? I can't tell you the next one that's going to go from being negative right now to turning, but when I see them turning, I see the momentum, right? These things are like battleships. You can't turn it in the bathtub. They don't just make an immediate U-turn. Now they can go week to week. Of course, these markets are volatile and crazy. You know that. So next week, I expect fireworks. If you ask me, which way are we going to trade? Oh my God. Always. My guess is if they announce 50 cents, I haven't watched the market for 24 hours too much. I watched a little bit last night and went to bed because I'm in Asia. But my gut, without hearing anything new in the news, because it was all political, Charlie Kirk, all of that stuff, even on YouTube. So I didn't really get to see the financials. But what I'm saying is, if they get a 50% rate cut, that wasn't always baked in. So that can cause some FOMO. But remember when we got the poor jobs report? Initially, everything flew up. Within 15 or 20 minutes, all the institutional and the CEOs of these major corporations, they're all dumping their stock, saying, are you kidding? You know, I've got 8 billion of Microsoft stock, or I've got 8 billion of Facebook if I'm Zuckerberg. Let me sell some off. I mean, this 15-year run, I don't trust this thing forever. So a guy like that can go dump what hundreds of thousands of us have, right? And just crush us. And that happens more than not. And that's what's fickle about the markets. It's just the liquidity, right? Retail does certain things, but institutional ultimately controls. So my guess is we do a similar deal. If we get a 50 basis point, oh, that's better. But remember, they never drop rates unless they see all the signs of a recession. And every time, rate dropping does not stop a recession. It doesn't stop the continuation of a down movement. So if, I say a big if the market's going to turn down and they rate cut 50 points, it may pop for a half an hour, a half a day, but it's very likely to turn around and go down. And we likely will continue down for a while. But again, could we get a FOMO? Could we get the 50 basis point and everything runs up 5% on the index and everything for a week? Absolutely. I'm never going to say it's got to be this way. But it still feels toppy to me, guys. So just be careful out there. Be careful with your margin. I worry more about margin people than just general. Most of you can sustain pullbacks. All right, guys. So summing these up, I gave you the three big movers, right? The 18, the 15, and the 9. Coinbase and Palantir, crypto and AI oriented, right? They did good, up 5. I mean, even Nvidia for the weekly change. I like to see these. These don't necessarily affect the payment because the payment is coming from the week before. So if I read this, Tesla may, with that kind of a move, have a good payment next week. All right, guys. So 69% for Palantir is the best in that group. Who do we have down here? Well, we got Berkshire Hathaway. We got Amazon. Whoo! The owl, Meta, Netflix. It's not even a contest. 331%. What's the competition? 38, 11, 39, and 9, right? But again, over 86 days, it's not hard to make something look outsized. Okay, so let's drop into our blue. And there you go, right? Here's a Google. which is a huge company, isn't going to go up 341%. But because of the short period of days, right, it's paid $5, which is a 9.88. But when you annualize that, if you paid almost 10% over 50 days, you're going to get 72.09 in distribution, right? And then this is really where the math, this is the right formula, the way it's done statistically, but it's not going to hold that. Just simply not going to hold that. But it doesn't matter. Everybody has it. Look at AVGW. It isn't that far behind. This is a horse race, 309 to 341. Look at AMD. It can't even get in the game. Microsoft's hanging in there with 10% positive. And then you got MicroStrategy, the absolute bottom of the barrel. How many people would have been saying that? If Misty ends up paying another dollar, run like hell, guys. That thing's going to be $5 before you know it. They pay you another dollar, they cannot recover until it changes. Could it change on MicroStrategy? Absolutely, anytime. But it hasn't shown me that yet. We went to new highs in crypto, it didn't change it. Now we're off the highs, okay? So I don't know. I don't even track it. I have no interest anymore other than just reporting. I don't own any MicroStrategy based funds. I own some BTC funds. So I watch BTC. I don't pay any attention anymore to Michael Saylor and MSTR. It's not that he's irrelevant because it can come back. I don't know. All right, guys. So that's what I got. I try to give you a little more than just report the numbers. I give you a little color, 45 years of being in the market, just like for my metals, guys. I'm going to tell you this and let you go. On my metals, guys, I did a big deep dive and I only put it on my Patreon. If you care about the metals, well, you got to be a paid member there, 5, 10, or 50. Um, I may put it out here later, but GDX is going through a massive redoing. It's changing its underlying index from the gold miners, New York Stock Exchange ORCA, to the micro vector global gold fund index. And in the process, they're changing the rules. Okay, you're already off this and done if you're not interested. That's waited till the end, okay? If you want to hear this, I'll continue for a minute. So why is that relevant? What's so big deal about it? Well, first off, look at who is outperforming everything else. The best stocks really are the gold miners, and they have been now for 6 months, okay? Multiple 200%, 150%, 100%, all over the place. The miners have woken up and starting to match the metals move. And it'll only get better over the rest of this decade, guys. It'll outperform the S&P 500. It'll outperform the NASDAQ. Okay, nothing's perfect. I mean, you turn around and buy next week, it could pull back 20%, but so could the market, so could anything. So this rebalancing, this whole changing of the index will cause some miners to be added, some miners to be dropped, some miners to buy a larger percent than they currently own, and some miners to trim. So I find it very interesting. This is going to cleanse things up. And to my Patreons, I give them a heads up on this a week ahead of the game. You won't find this info. It's really, really hard to find. But that's the kind of stuff I'm doing. And I'm just not going to give it away to my YouTube people when I have people paying for that are benefiting from it. All right, guys. But if you care, www.patreon, TWC100. Go check us out. There's even Patreon has a free membership, right? You don't get much. I do some videos on the free side. TWC 100 on Patreon. All right, guys, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I love these these round hill funds, the weeklies. Again, I don't fall in love. I love them because they're open. You know what's going on. You see the stuff. They pay you weekly. You have time to react. That's what I love. I have no community. Somebody asked me the other day, Bruce, you're beating up Neomax so bad, and you're raving on Roundhill. Or how much are they paying you? I said, not only are they paying me, I stopped doing all interviews. Rex has been asking me for weeks to do an interview, and I thought I don't want to show favoritism to something one over the other right now. I've interviewed a lot in the past. Curve, Granite. Yilmax never asked me, nor would they, because I'm not part of their fanboy group, right? And I know some of the fanboys badmouthed me early on. So I wasn't part of that. So I watched from the outside, still bought the fund, still talked about them, said all the positive. But when I see a change, I call it out for what it is. So I have no fanboyism, even if I tell you I love something. That could all change, and I'll be the first to tell you if it does. All right, guys, have a good one. Have a great Friday and hopefully a restful weekend. Bye for now.